Alright, so is Oatly gonna kill you or not? That seems to be the most important note to hit. Well, I've got some good news. No, it won't, but there is a lot to consider when choosing the best plant-based milk that doesn't immediately meet the eye. And there are definitely some that are far worse for you than others. So in this video, I'm gonna show you exactly which plant-based milks to avoid and share the healthier, delicious, and easy to find alternatives that you'll love. Now, before I start trashing your favorite plant-based milk, let me take a second to remind you of the benefits that plant-based milks have. Health-wise, plant milks have a lot of advantages over dairy milk, for example. They tend to be much lower in saturated fat, have no cholesterol, and tend to have fewer calories, up to 5 times fewer calories at that, and they usually boast the same calcium and vitamin D levels. And another big one is that they don't have lactose, which most adults on Earth struggle to digest. And besides health advantages, they're also much better for the planet, by some metrics even 20 times better than dairy milk. And of course, the vast majority of cow's milk comes from factory farms, where the conditions are disturbing and pretty nasty. But hey, at least there's a limit to how much pus is allowed in the milk. But with that in mind, not all plant-based milks are created equal, so let's get into the first one. The first milk we're gonna look at is rice milk. Underrated plant milk champion or milkshake in disguise? Well, let's start with the positives unique to rice milk. It tastes good, and very few people will be allergic to it. Now onto the bad. Even with no added sugars, it's a sugar bomb. Rice milk is high in sugar naturally because the carbohydrates of the rice get turned into sugar during the processing of the milk, and not in the way that fruit has natural sugar. This is more like added sugar territory, since most rice milk has no fiber. It's like the Coke of milks, okay? And not even the Coke Zero, just straight up Coke. Plus it's got literally almost zero protein, not even 1 gram. 1 cup has 0.1 grams of protein. You'd have to drink 730 calories of rice milk to get 1 gram of protein. It's shit like rice milk why people think vegans get no protein. If you're looking for a plant-based milk that tastes like a McFlurry, try rice milk. When it's the only plant-based milk at the coffee shop, I think, oh, guess I'm having a treat today. Like anything, having it every once in a while is fine, but there are much better alternatives, which is why it's going in the nah category. But realistically, rice milk isn't as common of an option depending on where in the world you are, whereas the next milk on the list is much more relevant. Okay, so the next milk we're looking at is almond milk. It was one of the most popular plant milks back in its heyday, but did it deserve the hype? On one hand, apart from the standard plant milk benefits, it's got a ton of vitamin E, and it's also really low in calories, around 30 per cup. So it's actually kind of like the Coke Zero of plant milks. It'll keep your skinny lattes extra skinny. But on the flip side, it's really low in protein, only 1 gram per cup, making its calories to protein ratio about 30. The lower this number, the more protein dense the milk is. So it's not the worst. Honestly, the best case I can find for almond milk is when you want to add creaminess to a dish like an oatmeal or a curry, but keep the calories low. That being said, I still think it's better to opt for higher protein milks that are coming up later on this list, despite them having higher calories, because they tend to be more nutritious. So for those reasons, I'm putting almond milk as a mid milk. And just to correct a quick piece of misinformation you always hear, although almond milk does use much more water than other plant-based milks, it uses roughly half the water of dairy milk. Plus, it actually has lower greenhouse gas emissions than even soy and oat milk. Alright, so this next milk, some people call it leche de guisantes, leche de chicharo, latte di piselli, and in English, we call it pea milk. Pea milk. We call it pea milk. Unfortunately named after the yellow split peas that are used to make them, not the garden peas that always show up in the marketing. But yeah, God, what a bad name. So it's kind of a tragedy that this is one of my favorite milks to get whenever it's available for a ton of different reasons. First of all, pea milk is creamy, and it's also the first milk on the list that's actually high in protein. On average, it's got around 8 grams of protein per cup, giving it a really good calories to protein ratio of 10. So it's one of the only plant milks that has about the same protein as dairy milk. And by the way, this is what I meant earlier when I said I still prefer a milk with higher protein, even if it does come with higher calories. Yeah, it has 80 calories per glass, but if you're trying to lose weight, you're also probably trying to preserve muscle. So you're getting a lot of protein for the calories. Plus, most brands I've had taste really good. Use pea milk to make breakfast or in your coffee to easily boost your daily protein. If you make oatmeal with pea milk, for example, your breakfast can easily have way more protein than scrambled eggs. Pea milk gets a strong yes from me. So let's normalize saying pea milk. Nah, f that, we gotta come up with another name. Next, we have oat milk, and this one is a really controversial one. Don't get me wrong, brands like Oatly taste great, especially in coffee. Plus, it's introduced millions of people to plant-based milk, and it's extremely good for the planet since it uses 13 times less water than dairy milk and only gives off about 1/4 of the emissions. Here's my issue with it. It has really low protein. 1 glass of oat milk just has around 3 grams of protein, which would be fine if, like almond milk, it didn't have a lot of calories. But here's where the problem lies. Oat milk is one of the most calorically dense plant milks out there, coming in at 140 calories per glass. And I'm not here to say calories are bad outright, they're not. But it doesn't really have the nutrition that other plant milks on this list have to justify those calories. Its calories to protein ratio is 46, making it only better than rice milk so far. So that's why I don't really recommend it to use in your oatmeal or smoothie bowls, because there are other options that will still add creaminess, like almond milk without as many empty calories, or there are other milks that are significant in calories, but they are also nutrient dense. I mean, if you really enjoy the taste, then by all means have oat milk as part of your daily routine. It's certainly better than having dairy milk, but for me, it's always a bit of a last resort, which is why I rank oat milk as solidly meh. All right, next up is coconut milk. Of course, I'm talking about the coconut milk in cartons, not the kind you get out of a can. That's more like a cream. Coconut milk is really low in calories, only about 40 per glass, so that makes it a good option for anyone trying to keep their calories down. Plus, it's got a really pleasant and unique taste that adds a really nice flavor to either your coffee or different dishes you might use it in, like a curry or a dal. But this milk is also not great for protein. 1 glass has about half a gram, and the calories to protein ratio is 88, which makes it even worse than the oat milk that I was just shitting on. And unlike the other plant milks, the fat in coconut milk is mostly saturated fat, which is specifically the bad kind. But realistically, it's in a similar camp as almond milk. Not the best nutritionally, not a lot of protein, but at the same time, could be an option if you're looking for something creamy with low calories and has a great taste. That's why coconut milk goes into the mid category. All right, cashew milk. So not as common, especially here in Europe, but I used to buy the Silk brand all the time in H-E-B, Texas represent. It's also a good source of vitamin E, and one thing that makes it stand out amongst the rest is that, at least to me, it's extremely creamy, despite being very low in calories. It only has 24 calories per glass, which is even less than the reigning champion almond milk. So for that reason, it can be another good option for when you want to maximize creaminess, but minimize calories. But low calorie comes at a cost, and of course, it's the protein. There's only 0.8 grams of protein in a glass of cashew milk. But the calories to protein ratio isn't terrible, it's 30, the same as almond milk. You may have noticed a pattern here, that low calorie milks tend to be really low in protein too, which makes sense. Calories come from protein. So really, it's just another low calorie milk with not that much protein. It has its uses, but I'd still drop this into mid. All right, save the most controversial for last. Soy milk. Here's the thing, you'll hear a lot of strong opinions about how soy is estrogen, how it'll harm your health, but is that true? I'll get to that, but first let's look at its nutritional profile. First of all, like pea milk, it's a legume-based milk, and you know we love legumes on this channel. It's extremely high in protein. It has around 8 grams of protein per glass, and it has an amazing calorie to protein ratio of 10. It's the perfect milk to choose when you're trying to keep calories low, but maintain muscle. Because even though it does have more calories than almond milk or cashew milk, the calories are coming from the protein. On top of that, it's a very creamy milk, and most brands I've had taste really good. Finally, it's one of the most planet-friendly milks, using up to 20 times less resources than dairy milk in some instances. So why not drink soy milk? Are all the rumors true? Does it feminize men and increase rates of breast cancer? Well, according to the Harvard School of Public Health, soy is a nutrient-dense source of protein that can safely be consumed several times a week and probably more often, and is likely to provide health benefits. And research has shown that eating soy may reduce risk of lung, prostate, and breast cancer. And one reason for why that is because soy contains a high concentration of isoflavones, which is a plant-based compound that may be particularly helpful in decreasing cancer risk and preventing cancer recurrence. So soy milk shouldn't be avoided. Quite the opposite. It's an incredibly easy way to put huge protein numbers on the board effortlessly. A soy latte will have 10 grams of protein. Using it in your oats can give you an extra 15 grams of protein. Make a protein shake with it, and that could be 40 grams of protein easy. Not to mention, a study came out saying that swapping just 3% of calories from animal protein to plant protein, like what's found in soy, was associated with 10% decrease in death from any cause. That's such an easy swap, and why I obviously put soy milk in the yes category. And the thing is, there are so many simple ways to swap out animal protein for plant protein to get those life-extending benefits. So check out this video next, where I show you how I easily get a ton of delicious plant protein every single day.